Assalamualaikum to Dr. Razif. My name is Muhammed aidid bin Ariffin. In this assignment for environmental chemistry, I will be addressing on the environmental impacts of fast fashion industry. What is fast fashion? Fast fashion can be defined as cheap, trendy clothing that are being manufactured at low cost with high volumes to meet consumer demands. In order to develop large quantities of clothing inexpensively, most companies will engage in ecologically degrading practice. This fashion industry is the third largest global manufacturer, but sadly, a lot of consumers are not aware of the impacts of purchases from fast fashion companies to the environment. It is also one of the world's largest polluters due to overproduction and large consumption. So how do we spot a fast fashion brand? Fast fashion brand consists of thousands of styles which touch on all the latest trends, have extremely short turnaround time between when a trend is seen on social media and when it was produced and seen in stores, offshore manufacturing where labor is the cheapest, which use workers on low wages without sufficient rights or safety, a limited quantity of a particular garment, and cheap and low quality materials such as polyester that cause clothes to degrade after just a few wears, which then will be thrown away. This diagram shows the global supply chain of fast fashion industry where it addresses on the impacts, which include energy consumption, chemical use, water use, and waste production from the cycle of producing fast fashion clothes. The fashion supply chain is through successive processes spanning a number of industries of agriculture and petrochemicals in manufacturing, logistics, and retail. 60% of global fiber production is used in fashion industry, where polyester accounted for 51%, followed by cotton at 25%. Polyester dominates production due to its performance characteristics and cost efficiency. Next, yarn manufacture uses a lot of water and energy through wet processes such as bleaching and dyeing, which also leads to excessive waste. After manufacturing, garments are shipped in large quantities where there is an increasing amounts of shipping through air cargo, which result in a 35% of carbon emissions. At the end of garments' life, they are incinerated or transported to landfills, which will lead to environmental impacts. The fashion industry is facing increasing global scrutiny of its environmentally polluting supply chain operation. However, this industry continues to grow due to the rise of fast fashion that relies on cheap manufacturing, frequent consumption, and short-lived garment use. So how is fast fashion bad for the environment? Clothing production is the second most water-intensive practice in the world, where it requires excessive water use. Second, carbon footprint through textiles and garments, where they generate the most greenhouse gases per unit material. And lastly, plastic and synthetic fiber waste, which are the main materials used in fast fashion industry for the production of clothing. One of the most significant environmental impact of fast fashion is water exploitation, where it uses about 79 billion cubic meters of water annually. Overusing of water sources for the manufacturing of fast fashion will lead to the decline in the global supply of safe drinking water. For an instance, the production of a single t-shirt and a pair of jeans causes 88% and 92% of the total water footprint respectively. As for leather production, it releases about 22,000 cubic meters of toxic wastewater into nearby rivers, which then could cause severe aquatic degradation and water pollution. Hence, this pollution had caused adverse health effects to the public like rashes and respiratory complications from the pollution. Textile causes 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is one of the industry that generate the most greenhouse gases per unit material, where this will raise the earth temperature and creates a ripple effect of ecological degradation. Fast fashion industry emitted approximately 4 gigatons of CO2 and 8.1% of global CO2 equivalent emissions. The high carbon footprint mainly comes from the high energy and the source of energy use. For example, the textile manufacturing in China uses coal-based energy, which results into 40% carbon footprint, which shows that high energy demands and CO2 emissions are associated with textile manufacturing and consumer use. The CO2 emissions also depends on the types of cotton used, as conventional cotton cultivation can emit 3.5 times more CO2 compared to organic cotton cultivation. This is the case of a cotton t-shirt and a pair of jeans. As we can see, the percentage of carbon dioxide that was released from the production of garment is significantly high. This goes to show that the production of clothing itself resulted into a high percentage of carbon emissions, which later impacts the environment. Synthetic materials are the primary culprits that causes plastic microfibers to enter the ocean, where 35% of all microplastics are from synthetic materials. In order to offer a lower price, producers turn to materials that are of low quality. For instance, most fibers are made of polyester, which consists of plastic and tend to release far more carbon emissions than cotton. Since plastic is slow to degrade in the ocean, it will create a toxic substance with harmful impact on the marine ecosystems, which might end up in the human food chain through aquatic life and cause many negative health effects. There are about 62 million metric tons of apparel were consumed globally, which later end up at the landfills, since these lower quality clothes are worn out after a few washes. When the landfills start to pile up, they are moved to an area to be incinerated, which could produce poisonous gases that might result into harmful effects to the public health and the environment. These are some of the recommendations that can be done to overcome environmental impacts of fast fashion industry. For government, they can build a legislation that forbids companies from burning clothing waste and setting up a policy for labor standards in the production process. As for organization, can use a sustainable material for the fabrics such as natural cellulosic and protein fibers, and also can host a second-hand clothes fair or online thrift stores. For consumers, they can shop from sustainable and ethical fashion brands, can donate used clothing or send for recycles, and can repurpose old clothing. In conclusion, the increased demand for large volumes of cheap clothing has resulted in environmental and social degradation along each step of the supply chain of fast fashion industry. If this industry maintains its course, an expected of 50% in greenhouse gas emissions will be increased within a decade. Therefore, new business models in fashion, such as circular or slow, must be adapted in order to match consumer needs while preserving resources and protecting the environment. As per today's conscious consumers, social entrepreneurs, ethical businesses, and responsible government each plays a vital role in fashion revolution, especially to overcome the environmental impacts of fast fashion industry.